Oh, okay, got it. Right, so really lovely to see everybody joining. Just to say that it's a two-part seminar, so this one next Thursday as well. So it'd be great if everybody who's on it today can join next week, but we will be recording it again and we can send the videos through. Oliver's going to have, before we kick off, Oliver's going to have, he's got a brief announcement just to do, so I'll pass over to you, Oliver.
Okay, hello everybody. Really lovely to see you all here today. Before we get cracking with Claire, I just wanted to tell everybody who hadn't already heard and remind people who have about Capacity Vault. We at MakeAWill Online are now offering protection to every supporter that makes a will through MakeAWill Online from challenge against lack of testamentary capacity, which is one of the really corrosive things that can happen in their Gifts and Wills campaign. By getting those capacity vaults to your supporters, it means that they can really protect their wishes. We estimate around about 1 in 10 people should really be thinking about protecting their will from challenge and testamentary capacity, and that is now totally free to your supporters. It's normally £150 to purchase for somebody, but we want to support every charity that we work with. That's it on Capacity Vault. Please do update your the wording on your Gifts in Wills, free wills campaigns, if you feel that would be appropriate for your supporters. Sorry, Marie, back to you.
Thank you, Oliver. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce Claire. For questions, obviously, as they come up, you go ahead and put them into the chat so you don't forget. And then what we'll do is at the right time, we'll come back to the questions and make sure they're all answered, if that's okay. So let's start off with an introduction for Claire. So Clare Sweeney, she's a fundraising consultant who's worked across the fundraising mix and delivers actual fundraising campaigns and supports many teams, as well as offering a range of training solutions. Claire's an expert on legacies and has worked with conservation, hospice, rescue, arts, medical, and community support causes, to name but a few. So over to you, Claire.
Hello, nice to see everybody. Well, not see everybody, but nice to be here and nice to chat about legacies, which is my favourite thing to do. I'll make a start and then I'll be here for some questions if any come up. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and here we go. Okay, so the topic today is how to empower everyone in your organisation to have some positive legacy conversation and really own this income. Now, I presume the reason that you're all here is that perhaps you do have an understanding that not everybody in your team is empowered to have positive legacy conversations, and maybe, and I've seen this in loads of different organisations that I've worked with, maybe even if it is really valued as such a significant and important income stream, and to be honest, let's admit that for many charities, it's the kind of income that has kept people afloat in the last couple of years. Even though it is that as significant when a gift does come in via a will, then does an organisation actually own this income? You know, where does it sit? Where does the sense of belonging belong, really? So there are some barriers. I'm just trying to get my presentation to move on. Okay, phew. There are some barriers to internal buy-in. These are perceived barriers, in my opinion, but the reason that we're here today and the reason that we're talking is that historically, legacies have been seen as something that is separate, something that isn't owned by everybody. And some of the most common objections or pinch points that people have expressed when it comes to talking about legacies, if you're not a trained legacy fundraiser, is that, well, these here. So first of all, legacies have been seen as something that are difficult to talk about. I've talked from CEOs to volunteers and everybody in between. If you're not comfortable talking about legacies from a certain perspective, then they can be seen as something that, oh, it might be a little bit distasteful, and is it expensive, or there's a gap in knowledge there. So it's perceived as something that is difficult, and that is a barrier to making everybody own and be able to have positive conversations about legacies. There's been a perception in the past that if you ask somebody for a legacy, then perhaps you're putting them off giving now. And prior to the pandemic, certainly, and prior to legacies getting a much more positive view nationally and internationally, people have wanted, rather than wait for the between 2 and 20 years for a legacy to be pledged and then for that actually to be realised, it's been a lot easier to concentrate on transactional appeals. So rattling a bucket, doing community fundraising, corporate, all the other income stream revenues that have a much quicker return, much less lucrative potentially, but a much quicker return. So in the past, that has been a barrier, because if you focus on legacies, then you're not getting the money in now. There were questions about, you know, is it comfortable to ask about people if they want to invest in a world without them? Drawing attention to the fact they're actually dying. Is it okay to say, you're going to die, are you going to give us some money so when you're gone, you know, we can benefit? That's been a barrier. And if there's family, you know, is it okay? These are the questions that I'm asked when I do training with different organisations, or when I've sat within teams and heard the conversations in the office that I've put out there. Well, if they've got family, do people want to give to charity as well? Have they got that ability? Is that the right thing? Are we okay to tread over that boundary? These are, again, reasons why people feel uncomfortable around legacy conversations. Why ask anyone to worry about what happens when they're gone? Is that something that is a nice conversation to have? How can that be positive? And then there are more practical barriers. So, for instance, there might be a vague understanding that there might be some tax benefits if you leave a legacy, but there's a gap in knowledge again. Is it okay to talk about things? What if I say something that's not right? Am I then doing something that's wrong as a fundraiser or as a volunteer? Am I being bad for my organisation by giving misinformation? And then also, is it presumptuous to ask for such an important gift? You know, is it my job? I'm not a legacy fundraiser. What I am a legacy fundraiser, obviously, but I'm talking about other people in your organisation. Do they think, that's not really my job? It's a bit presumptuous. I'll leave it. Okay, so all of those things combined can mean that you're in an environment where legacy fundraising conversations can be problematic and are not comfortable areas. But we want to turn that around, because a legacy doesn't come in because of the person that's administering those gifts. A legacy doesn't come in because there's a legacy department. A legacy comes in because somebody feels so connected with your cause that when they've sat down to review the entirety of their life, they've actually said, do you know what? That cause is part of who I am. And that has come from a deep connection, and that connection has come from a point of contact with somebody within your organisation. And it could be a service that they've accessed. It could be that they've been to one of your shops and been welcomed by a volunteer who's accepted, you know, some clothes. It could be any single point. They could have rung up for some advice and actually spoken to somebody with some compassion. So a legacy comes not from a legacy fundraiser, believe it or not. It comes from a contact with somebody within your organisation. So communication is key from legacy people to extend to the rest of the organisation, to allow them to feel empowered and have that ownership. Say, this income is really significant, it's wonderful, it makes such a difference, and it's because of you. So who do we want to tell? We want to tell every single stakeholder that has contact with people outside of your organisation. Now, what is it we want to see? We want to provide good, powerful messages that are easy to share and that are not that they don't have those barriers with them. How are we going to actually, I'm going to break this down in the next slides. How are we going to empower people to have the communication skills to be able to deliver the messages that we are suggesting that we give people within our organisation? Then there's the wow factor. A legacy doesn't come because somebody's just seen somebody rattle in a tin or gone to a shop and not had anything other than a special experience. A legacy comes because somebody has felt something really important that's connected deeply with them. They've had that wow factor. How do we allow the rest of our team to tap into that wow factor and be advocates of legacy giving for our organisation? And we'll have a look at that in a moment. And then where do we share those messages? Okay, so who do we want to empower? Well, we want to empower everybody. I've already said that a legacy doesn't come in because of a legacy fundraiser or a legacy fundraising team. I wish it was that easy. It isn't, which is a bit of a relief for me as a legacy fundraiser, but a legacy comes in because there's been a connection made with your employees, with your volunteers, within the broader community, through other donors, with partners, and that's corporate partners as well as service providers, with groups, with service users, and with the family and friends of everybody. So everybody needs to feel comfortable, or it's an advantage for everybody to feel comfortable about having legacy conversations. What is it? What are the messages? Okay, one of the barriers is an uncomfortableness around about the mechanics of a legacy, and this is why you are partnered with somebody like MaWO. This is why you're here today. You've identified that the job of the mechanics of delivering a gift in a will are the experts, and these are Oliver, these are Marie, this is MaWO as an organisation. They have the mechanics. So that's not something that you need to really focus on when you're empowering people to have legacy conversations within your organisation. Your legacy message, and there's something that you really want to get across and empower everybody to be able to talk about, is first of all your gratitude for gifts in wills. Simply letting people know that you accept a gift in a will is a very first step when it comes to empowering people to have legacy fundraising conversations, because otherwise they might think that either you don't accept them, you don't want them, it's not relevant to your organisation, or it's just for the big boys, the ones that are advertising on the telly or the ones that are running current promotions. So first of all, first message is you do accept and you're grateful for legacy gifts. And then your mission statement is really what matters. Don't think about, the nuts and bolts of what you do, but what was it that made your organisation set itself up? What problem was it hoping to solve? What difference was it hoping to make? Now that is your legacy conversation. You want to inspire people to have that connection with your cause and think, actually, yes, the world would be a better place if that problem was solved. And so as part of who I am, I want to align my values with that cause, and that's why I'm going to give a gift in my will to that organisation. It's all about your mission, it's all about your vision, it's all about your values, and those are brilliant things to talk about because that's why you're working for the organisation, or that's why you're connected with the organisation that you're connected to. So actually, it's a brilliant opportunity. A legacy conversation is a brilliant opportunity to talk big, to talk bold, and to be excited about what you hope to achieve. Okay, so how do you have these conversations? Let's break down step by step and debunk these myths, and we'll start at the bottom and work our way up. It's difficult or expensive to leave a gift in a will. Well, you know that this is not the case. It's not that difficult, and actually it's not our job. We're not there holding our supporters' hands when they book a holiday, when they buy a house, all those adulting things that you do. Making a gift in a will is something that an adult with capacity and an adult who is perfectly capable can do on their own. So that's not your focus. And it's not that expensive. You've partnered with Make a Will Online, so it's accessible, and you're giving them the introduction. This is the mechanics. This is the way you go. Go and check it out for yourself. That's not your legacy conversation focus. Giving now means that you don't want to leave a legacy. Well, that's actually been proved by a lot of research that that's not true. When somebody feels that deep connection, sits down, leaves a gift in their will to a charity, then actually it's been shown that they are 6 more times likely in their own lifetime to give a significant gift and even become a major donor. So even though you won't necessarily get that gift in a will straight away, it means that you are connecting with that individual, and that's really valuable for your cause. So people don't want to invest in a world without them. Well, that's also not true. Do you know the very first bequests? And I was a little bit surprised at this. The very first bequests date all the way back to ancient Egypt. It seems to be something within our very thing as a human to want to leave the world a better place. I'm not talking all humans, obviously, you know, there's other things going on. But for the people that are our target audience, the people that are lovely people that will become legators, they do want to invest in a world without them. If there's family, do they still want to give to charity? Well, yes, not everybody. Some people just want to give to their own friends and family, and that's fine. Again, not our target audience. 60% in the UK at the moment, roundabout, have a will, and around about 14%, well, it varies depending on who you talk to, depending on the will writing provider, but between 9 and 16% of people who make a will actually leave a charitable gift, and that's your target audience. And regardless of family, they do want to leave a gift. So allow them to, empower them to, say that you gratefully accept gifts in wills. That's your job. Why would you want to ask anybody about when they're gone? Well, this is a sensitivity I quite find with fairly young legacy fundraisers. You know, people that maybe are in their 20s, people that are younger than me, and certainly younger than my gran. My gran doesn't want to die, but she's fully prepared that it's an inevitable part of life. And so she has her affairs in order, and she talks quite openly. She's in her 80s. She knows she's not going to be here for the next 30 years. And she's not offended if anybody asks her if she's left a gift in a will. So that's not, I don't think it's a legitimate concern necessarily. If you don't want to talk about when they've gone, just talk about mission and just talk about impact of generic third-party gifts in wills. You don't need to personalise it to them. But it's not something that is distasteful. As we've already covered, if you don't understand tax benefits and could be wrong, that's not our job. That's the job of the professionals. We're not solicitors, we're fundraisers. We're not tax professionals, we're fundraisers. So we can talk about our cause and we can wax lyrical about why that is so important, but it isn't our job to talk about tax. And also, it's not presumptuous to ask for such an important gift. It's actually empowering. Imagine saying to somebody, you've got an opportunity to allow your values and the things that you really believe in to live on long past you're gone, for generations to come. People do like that, or certainly your target audience for legacies. Legacy messages are all about inspiration with a good dose of surprise and delight. Think big, talk about the bigger picture. It's inspiration. You're allowing somebody to live on and their values to exist in the future. That's a wonderful and inspiring thing, and something we'll talk more about, how to wow your message in next week's session. Share. What do you want to share? Now, I always talk about the 3 R's. In order for something to be, you want to create advocates. You want to empower people with messages that are relatable, so then they can think, oh yeah, that means something to me, or at least I can see how that means something to somebody else. Rememberable, because what's the point in telling something that it just goes out the head? And retellable. If you empower all of your stakeholders, from the CEO to your volunteers, to your service users, to your donors, to everybody in between, with a key piece of information that they can own and then they can tell you back. I love it when I'm working with an organisation as a legacy fundraiser and somebody comes in with a gift and tells me the messages that I've helped to put out there and tells it back. It's a wonderful thing to go, yeah, they get it, you know, and we've created advocates and they're telling that to their friends and they're spreading the message. So make sure your messages, which you want other people to share, are relatable, rememberable, and retellable. And the good news, the brilliant news, is that legacies are really significant. Last year and going into next year, it's expected that 1 out of every £6 from fundraising as a whole comes from a legacy. That is pretty blooming significant. And in total, legacies are expected to raise over 3.6 billion in the UK alone from last year to this year. And it's on the increase. Legacy Foresight are predicting that that amount is going to go up to 5.5 billion in the next 5 years. So if you don't have legacy conversations, then that massive amount of intergenerational transfer of wealth, which is going to happen, it'll go elsewhere. So I think it's really important to be confident to talk about the value. Now, next time, and more good news, FastMap, who do a lot of analysis of motivations and particularly legacy motivations, they've identified that international motivations for leaving a gift in the will tend to be because people want to help. They want to help people that are most in need, or this is what they reportedly say. They want to leave something behind for a cause that they care about. As they were saying, you know, you make a connection and then your values can live on, and that's powerful stuff. They want to leave the world a better place than the one that they grew up in. Again, that is impact and showing that you've made a difference in your lifetime. And a legacy is an opportunity that perhaps, you know, you haven't reached the heights in certain areas, either in business or whatever, but your gift in your will allows you to achieve things that are over and beyond just the sum of who you are, but you're part of a bigger deal. Family being financially secure, it's okay to support others. And that's been shown over and over again. And it's personal as well. You go, yes, I care for my family, but part of my identity is a dedication to this cause and this cause. And that's why I'm going to give my final words are yes, significantly to my family, but also this is part of who I am. People worry about the generation, and certainly the baby boomers, who are the generation that are going to be leaving us in the next 10, 20, 30, well, 10, 20 years. They have had good opportunities. That's why they've got this great transfer of wealth that is going to be passed on. And so there is a real desire of that generation to make sure that they pass on some of the good fortune that they have and the hard work that they've amassed over their lifetime. And people do have an understanding that it's a cost-effective way to give it to a charity. It's a gift that if you are perhaps cash poor right now, but asset rich in the future, so you've got an expensive house or you've got a valuable house, you don't have to cough up a huge amount to a charity and appeal now. And this is why I think it's so inclusive and always suggest having legacy messages across all your marketing channels. Allow somebody to say, okay, I am going to support your current work, but it's going to come from a gift in the future. And there are tax implications. If you give over 10% of the value of your 10% of the value of your estate, if you make that a charitable bequest, then there are implications with HMRC. Again, that's not something that we need to worry about, but people that are very savvy will understand that that is a benefit to leaving a charitable gift in their will. And broadly, people have a broader understanding because of the work of organisations like Make a Will Online, and because solicitors do educate people. And then I want to remember, this actually comes down as quite a low thing when FastMap did some research, but actually, when you're no longer here, that's quite a devastating concept. But if you know that people are continuing to act on your behalf, then that's actually quite a powerful motivational force, and certainly for legacy giving. Okay, so top takeaways very quickly, because I'm aware that I don't want to overrun. Talking about legacies does not need to be difficult. And that relates to the point about it's not uncomfortable necessarily. It certainly doesn't need to be. Talk about inspiration. Don't talk about you're going to die, so we want some of your cash. That's not at all your message, and it's not presumptuous, and it doesn't need to be expensive either. Those are myths. So if you allow everybody within your team and your wider network to know, it's okay. You don't need to get somebody to sign on the dotted line or march them off to the solicitors right away. It's just talking about inspiration and the broader ambition of your cause. Asking A legacy is the opposite of restrictive. It doesn't prevent future gifts. It actually encourages more gifts in their lifetime, and it's inclusive because you're not asking for a gift now, you're asking for a gift in the future. The audience for a legacy conversation is not limited. Anybody can leave a gift. There's been research to see whether it's just the rich people, or is it poor people, or is it people that are particularly connected with a cause, or is it people that a cause has never heard from. And we know, if we work in legacies, that it's quite surprising where you get those gifts from. So it's not limited. Just put that message out there, and put that message. It's a drip feed message as well. It's a we do legacies, thank you very much, across all your channels without being too pushy. And talking about intentions to leaving a gift in a will, it's not unrealistic. It's becoming more and more known. There are more and more legacy fundraisers across the sector now, because our sector has woken up to the fact that this income is very valuable, is very relevant, is the only income stream that's actually positively impacted by COVID, truth be told. And so those messages are out there. So if you don't as an organisation talk about the benefit of legacies for you, then chances are your supporters who are going to give may give elsewhere. The mechanics is not your job. I keep saying that, and it's absolutely true. Leave the mechanics to the professionals, and you've got the professionals. That's why you're here. So you don't need to concentrate on the mechanics. And talking about legacies, the biggest takeaway, it's inspirational. It's the bigger picture, and it's quite a joyous and empowering conversation to have, and enjoyable. You know, when you look at it from that perspective, and you're allowing somebody to allow their values to leave on, and you're not asking for something right now, they are the most valuable conversations. And that's why I've been a legacy fundraiser now for over 10 years. And even when I've tried to move away from legacies, I've always got sucked back in, because they're wonderful conversations. And now I'm going to stop talking.
Thank you, Claire. That was excellent. I love the first bequests were made back in the days of the ancient Egyptians. It's brilliant. So I don't think we've got any questions in chat. Has anybody got any questions that they'd like to ask? Oliver?
Oliver, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was pressing my space bar. I thought that was my little shortcut to getting out of mute. Apologies. So yes, I have got a question. I've got two and a small plug. Surprise, surprise. Firstly, this is the first seminar of two. Is there anything that we should be thinking about before the next seminar, which I hope everybody is going to be able to come along to, that we can bring to the next seminar?
Okay, so that was my last slide that I forgot to click on. What I would like the takeaways next week would be really how to hone those messages for your own particular organisation, how to condense your mission statement into something that is like the 3 R's: rememberable, relatable, and retellable, and also how to stand out from the crowd. One of the biggest challenges actually with fundraising as a whole, and I've been to events where you have supporters that support a cause and they love the cause, and the cause could be conservation, the cause could be rescue, the cause could be cancer research, and they will give to that particular cause because they want that problem to be solved. Now, the actual identity of the charity itself that they're giving to, sometimes there can be a little bit of confusion. I've been to wildlife trusts and national trusts and RSPB places, and have had supporters from other organisations rocking up and going, oh, trying to get into an RSPB place with a wildlife trust badge. You know, it's how do you make your particular cause, identity, and your brand really stand out, so people actually know when they are writing their will that they're writing to you and not to one of your competitors. So yes, how do you stand out from the crowd? There's a lot of noise about legacies. The good news is that people are showing that they do support a national, and they also really support hyper-local charities too. So there's opportunity for everybody. What specific words I've read? It's all down to your mission. What is it that you're hoping to achieve? I've had this conversation again with many different organisations. I say, what is it that you do? And people will say, oh, we provide service for people that have got limited sight, or we provide services that have got limited hearing, or we provide services that people are living with cancer. Okay, right. Okay, but what is it that you actually do? You know, and then give an example. So rather than that we provide services, give an example of where you've had an impact. I was talking to somebody that was providing services for somebody who was short-sighted or had some really strong issues with their eyes, and they'd never been able to use a smartphone, didn't think it was accessible to them. And then they came across somebody else who had the same condition as them, but was using a smartphone. And then the charity that I was supporting, they said, oh, I suppose there is an example. We actually took the time to teach that person how to do that. Now that makes it completely relatable to think, rather than just helping for the blind organisation or helping for the conservation, if you give a real example of where you've had impact, and that is relatable and something that connects with somebody's own experience as a human, those are the kind of messages that you want to draw out of your cause or mission, and feed that into legacy communications. Was the 2 questions?
I had another one, if that's okay. So we were speaking about how to communicate with colleagues, how to communicate with volunteers today, how to get them to feel like they own the income that comes in, and can, as you pointed out, save the organisation in a tight spot, how they feel engaged with it. You spoke about the 3 R's, you know, the relatable, retellable, rememberable, and
oh, well done.
You have, I wrote them down. Do you, reading, writing, arithmetic, do you have, or would you suggest that when you're speaking with your colleagues, so that they feel engaged with the Gifts in Wills message, you have something that you explore internally, which is different to the messages that go out to your out to the supporters, or would you recommend just they all remain the same and somehow allow your colleagues to engage with that with ownership of that income?
Yeah, it is slightly different, and this whole topic has come up as a recurrent theme, just because I've sat in offices and, you know, community fundraising is really tough, and fundraising as a whole is really tough, and you work really hard to get donations in, and they won't necessarily always be that substantial. Sometimes they are. If you work in major donors in philanthropy, then they can be enormous, but for lots of fundraisers and for lots of volunteers and for lots of people that work directly with your supporters, then the thought of raising the kind of money that comes in via a legacy, it's just a different sport. So if you tell them that, yes, you are working really hard and you're going into people's homes, or you're going into people's lives and you're providing a service, and that, as a result of what you're doing as a day-to-day, you could be unlocking the most amazing legacy for the future. And I've had chats with internal teams that just pick up the phone, you know, the administrators, the wonderful people that are the receptionists of organisations, and to actually sit with them and go, you know, this, you know, 50 grand that's come in, or this $500,000 that's come in, or even £1 million that come in, or even a couple of thousand, that's potentially down to you. You know, and they're like, what? You know, it's nothing to do with me. Well, of course it's something to do with you, because of the way that you treat our supporters, or you engage with our supporters. That's allowed somebody to feel so connected that when they've sat down and reviewed their whole life, they've gone, yeah, you're part of, your organisation is part of who I am, and I want to give as a result of that. And that's pretty awesome. But I do see that unless you have those conversations internally, sometimes legacy income can be seen as separate and other, and actually a little bit demoralizing if you're working in other income generation streams that don't bring in those amounts. And what you need to do is just flip that on its head and say, no, this is a combined effort. and to actually celebrate internally the value, the frequency and the opportunity of getting legacies in. Now, that is different to what you're saying externally, because you don't, if you've never had a legacy, then it's a bit of a tough sell to say support. So we've never had one, we'd really like one, please. You know, that's not an inspiring message. Or if you also say, we're doing really well with legacies, we've had £1 million legacies the last 5 years, then that, you know, then somebody might choose to go elsewhere. So the messages are different, but it is all about inspiration. Inspiration is at the core.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
No problem. I do like to talk legacies.
Okay.
I do like to talk.
Any more questions from anybody else? Anybody got any questions? Not got anything else in chat. Just as a follow-up to this, we'll send out a feedback form and obviously the recording as well. So if you could, it'll only take a few minutes to complete, but if you could complete them, that would be really useful for us. And also there'll be some information you can put on there if there's anything in particular you might want Claire to touch on in the session next week, so we can put those comments
touch on.
So that would be really useful. So I think we're just getting some lovely thank you messages now. But like I said, it's great to see you all. Hopefully everybody can make next week. But if not, we'll be recording it. So we'll send it through once it's ready.
And thank you for the opportunity. And it's not scary, it's not frightening, and it is inspiring, and it's a joy to talk to your supporters about legacies, because not everybody wants to share that they've got a future gift coming to you, but some people do, and they're lovely conversations, they really are.
Super. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to end the meeting now. Thank you to everyone for coming, and wonderful talk. Thank you, Claire. All the very best. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.